Hello, hello. I hope you're doing well today. I hope you had such a lovely bank holiday weekend. I'm really excited for today's video because I've made weird and wonderful plant videos before. I've taken you through kind of like my top 10 in my collection, but I was on a bit of a mission with this video idea to discover some new ones. So I put a post out on Instagram and I asked you guys to send me some of the most bizarre, craziest, kookiest, most unusual plants you could possibly think of, and oh boy did you deliver. I have got some insane ones to take you through today, and my wish list has definitely grown because of it. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, you are in for a treat today because, as I say, there are some really special plants on this list that I didn't even know existed. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So before I take you through all of the new weird and wonderful plants, I just wanted to take a moment to show you something weird and wonderful that is happening in my collection. And it is my Gymnocalycium, which is probably my funkiest cactus, getting ready to bloom. And just look at the size of that bloom. It is literally going to pop any day now. And I wanted to show you it now because very sadly, I have a feeling I'm gonna miss it, and I'm absolutely gutted because this is the first time this plant has ever flowered for me before. But I go to the RHS Festival in Malvern tomorrow. I'm starting my journey there tomorrow, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to see it because I'm gonna be away for about a week. I did have a really crazy idea of taking it with me, but I just think that might be the worst idea ever. I think that's a bit overly keen and the plants probably wouldn't enjoy that very much. So maybe I won't miss it. Maybe I'll still be able to catch the last of it when I'm home. But I just, as I say, wanted to give you a little look at it today. And also with the RHS Festival in Malvern, I know some of you guys are coming. It's going to be so lovely to meet you there. I am unbelievably excited about it. I have got a discount code for tickets as of today. So if you are still potentially thinking about coming, it's from Thursday till Sunday. You can just come for one day or you can come for the whole time. I'm going to be there for the whole time. But yeah, I will leave all the details for that down below because yeah, I know I've been getting quite a few questions about it. But yeah, on to the weird plants. I've brought my laptop over and I will squidge over so I can put the pictures of the plants just there. The one thing that I was going to say is that I've looked on Instagram for some of these plants and some of them are quite rare, quite unusual. If I were you, if you want to see them in all of their glory, Google them, because I'm going to put some Instagram pictures here, but because of copyright stuff, I'm not allowed to just put pictures that I find on Google in my videos. So yeah, I would highly recommend having a Google. And the first one is one that I don't know if I'm going to be pronouncing this correctly, but it reads as Drosanthemum globosum. I think that's how you pronounce it. And oh my goodness, this one is just stunning. This is 100% one that I would recommend Googling. I know I did see some on Instagram, but they are nowhere near as good as the ones that are coming up on Google. It's commonly known as dew flowers and it's native to Namibia, which is in South Africa. And I just think this one looks like, it just looks like, you know when you get those sour sweets, like little sour jelly bean type things and they're covered in, I guess it's just like sour sugar or I don't know what it is, but it kind of twinkles. This plant literally looks like that. It is so stunning. And I don't know if it's just that there's different varieties of this plant or maybe it's sun stresses, but some of the pictures I'm looking at, it almost looks rainbowy. Like it kind of looks like it's been photoshopped. Do you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't look quite real. And I saw this one and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, this is a colourful plant that I feel like I could absolutely get on board with. So yeah, I am definitely going to be adding this one to my collection at some point soon, I hope. I did have a look in here in the UK on Etsy. You can get 10 seeds for about £5. I don't know much about growing this plant from seed yet, but I think that sounds pretty good. Like assuming it's one that you can grow from seed fairly easily, I think that's a pretty good price. So yeah, as I say, I am 100% going to be ordering myself some seeds. And obviously, as I said, it is a plant that's native to South Africa. It thrives, I've tried to make some notes here. I put thrives in dry soil and should be watered sparingly. I think what I'm saying there is it is a very drought tolerant plant. And in fact, just looking at it, even just looking at that little kind of succulent, kind of foliagey structure it's got, you kind of would expect it to be quite a drought tolerant plant. Like, it looks like one that could be overwatered very easily. And I know that obviously you can't guess everything just by looking at a plant, but structure-wise, it almost looks a little bit similar to something like the bear paw cactus, for example. So yeah, I would guess it's probably quite a low maintenance plant. It is one that likes fairly high levels of light. Bright indirect light is preferable. But as I say, looking at those beautiful colours on it, my guess would be that is to do with sun stress. And if any of you own this plant, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know some growing tips. Honestly, whatever your experience is with this plant, I would be so interested to know, because I think it's just amazing. It's just amazing. So yeah, as I say, that is high up on my wish list right now. And I definitely feel like this year, I'm definitely getting better with certain types of colourful plants. I know I just showed you the Gymnocalycium, and that's one that is pretty colourful and I really love. And this one as well is very colourful and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, maybe that is something that I'm conquering, because previously I just found colour a little bit overwhelming. But yeah, I want that plant. And this next one is called the Christia obcordata, and it's commonly known as the swallowtail or butterfly plant. And apparently it's known as the butterfly plant because it's got lightweight leaves that flutter in the breeze. And just from looking at the pictures of it, you can kind of tell that, like, it does look incredibly delicate. It's got very bold veination and kind of, I don't know, like, it's very striking for something that feels very, I can't think of a better word than delicate. I guess kind of in the same way as something like calatheas. Like, they often come in the most beautiful variety of patterns and colours, and yet they are very sensitive plants, if that makes sense. But this one's native to tropical and subtropical Asia. It's another one that really likes bright and direct light. It is one, and I found this quite interesting, it is one that apparently likes to dry out about 50% before you rewater it. And again, and this just goes to show that you cannot tell everything just from looking at a plant, because looking at this one, I thought it would be one that likes to remain consistently moist. Again, similarly to what I was just saying about calatheas, for example, I would have thought it was like a very high maintenance plant. And from what I have researched, it doesn't seem to be quite as high maintenance and dramatic as I would have initially thought. And another fun fact about this plant as well, it's in the Fabaceae family, which, I mean, I would have thought that this one was probably, again, looking at it, I would have thought maybe Maranticiae family, but the Fabaceae family actually is the one that houses or contains, sorry, the types of plants that produce chickpeas and lentils and peas and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not necessarily what you would expect, or what I expected anyway. And this one, looking for seeds of this plant, because again, it's one that I was like, oh, you know what, I would absolutely love to grow that plant. In the UK, I couldn't actually find much online, but in the US, I saw that about 100 seeds were going for roughly $40. And I think, I mean, for 100 seeds, I think that's pretty good. I believe that this is a plant that reproduces by creating seed pods and kind of firing seeds out, similarly to the next plant we're going to talk about. But yeah, I think that's how the seeds are collected. So it's kind of not surprising you get quite a few. But again, it's one that I'd be really keen to add to my collection, and I'm not sure how easily you propagate this plant. I haven't seen any UK plant shops that I've been aware of that have been selling this plant. So again, if you own it, please let me know more about your growing experience with it. I just love that, like, burgundy red with the lime green. It's so unusual and it's just so cool. And I know I'm one for always banging on about texture in plants, and when I say texture, I don't always necessarily mean like the shapes of leaves or like the texture of the leaves themselves. I more kind of mean the different, oh, also realised I haven't put my grow lights on today, that's better. I more kind of mean the different textures and patterns and the things that make plants unique, that help them to stand out amongst others. And I feel like having this one in amongst my current collection, I don't know, I just feel like it would look really beautiful. So yeah, I can imagine it's a very difficult one to treat if it gets pests, and that is just purely speculation. But looking at those thin leaves, I would have thought it's probably a bit of a magnet for thrips and spider mites. I don't know. But yeah, it is just gorgeous. And then number 3 on my list, this is one that I have shown you before. However, very sadly, I don't have it to show you right now, and I will explain in a moment. But it is the Biophytum sensitivum. And this one's native to tropical Asia. And I actually showed you it in my recent houseplant tour that I posted a couple of months ago. And I got this plant, I think I only got it about 3.5 months ago, but what I didn't realise is that once it produces seeds and it ejects them, if you don't cut the flowers back very quickly, the plant will essentially die off. And I didn't catch it quite soon enough, I don't think, because I was getting on really well with the plant. I was finding it very easy to grow, and I was noticing that it was producing lots of flowers and it was kind of firing these seeds out. And I think I should have just done something about it a little bit sooner. But that is apparently very common with this plant. It does tend to cycle. Once it's produced its babies, it will die back and then the babies will grow. So it apparently makes an amazing terrarium plant, not only because it really loves high levels of humidity and stuff like that, but if you're looking for something that's, sorry, the bin men are just outside being very loud. But if you're looking for something that is going to essentially continue to cycle and not outgrow a terrarium, these can be really, really great because, as I'll show you from the pictures on the screen, but it looks like a little mini palm tree. And as I say, it produces these seed pods that literally open and eject the seeds. I was going to say quite viciously. I don't mean viciously. It's quite a dramatic eject that they do. They kind of pop out of the seed pods, and in a terrarium environment, obviously contained space, they will essentially reseed, and then the mother plant will die back. And for that reason, they will never get so big that they can't cope in a terrarium. I guess the only thing to think about with that is that if each and every one is producing seed pods and every single seed grows, you're probably going to have a lot of them very quickly. But yeah, and probably the most obvious thing with this plant, Biophytum sensitivum, it's in the name. It's a sensitive plant that responds physically to touch. So if you do brush its leaves, which I don't recommend you do because it's not all that good for the plant, but if you do brush its leaves, they will actually close up and it responds to that to protect itself, which is really, really sweet. I think it's just such an adorable little plant. So yeah, it's one that brought me a lot of joy in the time that I owned it. And I have actually got lots of the little seeds in this little makeshift prop box, which I don't think anything's happening in here yet, but I will just have a quick look. I've been in here for about 6 weeks, I think. Oh, and you know what? I can see, I don't know how well you'll be able to see on camera, but like just there, I can see the start of a few very little shoots coming up. So you know what, it might be growing back already, which is very exciting. But yeah, I'm really excited to have this one back in my collection, and I'm so glad that I was able to catch some of the seeds so that I haven't lost the plant completely, because I just find it a really rewarding one to grow, and it's just a really cool plant. So yeah, it's one that I would highly recommend. And then this next one gave Ross a good giggle. It is the Mammillaria. Oh my God, that's a big bee. Whoa. Okay, let's get you out. Look at the size of that. Can you see how big that bee is? Whoa. Whew, okay, bee is successfully released back to the Mammillaria matudae, commonly known as the thumb cactus. It definitely looks, yeah, it's an interesting looking cactus. And this one is native to Mexico. And I just find it so funny how it gets this little crown of flowers. Like, I don't know, like, not that I know a huge amount about how cacti flower, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like, why not at the tip, or why not all the way down the cactus? Why just kind of around the crown? Yeah, it just looks quite funny. But it's actually really adorable. I'm looking at some pictures of it here, and it does look very, very, very sweet. And I know I just said it was native to Mexico, but it is a desert cactus. It enjoys very dry conditions. It's very drought tolerant. Again, probably goes without saying, but it is one that likes pretty bright light, like bright and direct, to probably, if you're trying to get it to flower, direct sunlight, particularly if you're trying to grow it in a UK home environment. So yeah, it's one that I'm not sure how readily available it is here. I couldn't see much online when I had a look. But it's one that I don't believe I've ever seen just kind of like knocking about a garden centre. But then again, if I picture it without its little flower crown, I'm like, would it catch my eye in the same way? I'm not sure it would. And to be honest, in fact, this is probably not one that I would want to add to my collection. I think it's a really cool, weird and wonderful plant, but it's just one that doesn't interest me as much as some of the others. But I thought I'd include it because I just thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, because it is a cactus and because it is a desert cactus, it's one that kind of thrives on neglect a little bit because it is so drought tolerant. If you're someone that forgets to water every so often, then chances are this is the sort of plant for you. The only thing to kind of probably obviously state with a plant like this is that if you are someone who is a little more prone to overwatering, you're gonna have to remind yourself not to water this one too much, because it is one that will suffer from root rot and probably pretty bad stem rot very quickly. I know some of the cacti that I've seen, I mean, commonly in the UK on like rescue shelves or save me shelves in garden centres, are so often cacti and succulents that have been overwatered. And you can sometimes get lucky and do a chop and prop if you catch it early, but it does spread so quickly in a way that it doesn't always with certain other types of plants. So yeah, it is something that you have to be very vigilant with and very careful of. But yeah, it's a pretty funky cactus. And then this next one, so I don't think I like this next one at all, but it's weird, so I thought I would include it, and it's the Euphorbia platyclada, which is commonly known as the dead stick plant. And it's very clever because in its natural habitat, this plant essentially disguises itself as a dead stick, as you see here, so that it won't get eaten by predators. So I think that's very clever. But I spend the majority of my time trying to make sure that my plants don't look like dead sticks. So I just don't think I would enjoy caring for this one very much. I don't think I would find new growth particularly rewarding, because I think it would just look like something was becoming more and more dead. But if you are into really kind of weird, creepy stuff, then I feel like this would be a good plant for you. I do really enjoy growing euphorbias. Like, euphorbia is one of my favourites. Yeah, I would say one of my favourite genus of plants. But this is one that I'm just like, no, not at all. Not at all, not for me. It also, I will see if I can find a picture and put it on the screen, because it has got the weirdest flowers. Because like, I heard it flowered and I was like, oh, and I was like, maybe its flowers will make me love the plant more. And they are just so bizarre. They look kind of like dead flowers. You know what this would be great for? If you were trying to do like a weird Halloween setup or like a Day of the Dead type thing, and you wanted to make it planty, this would be a great one to include. But then again, that being said, you could probably just go outside and find a dead plant or dead sticks, or just grab a dead plant from your own collection, which in my case, I usually can. I've usually got at least one that's not having a good time. But yeah, I've also heard it's very fast to grow. As I say, like, Euphorbia is a genus that is, for me, very rewarding. It's one that is very adaptable. But yeah, as I think I've made pretty clear, for me personally, not my sort of plant, but it is quite cool. Oh, and I thought I would include this next one just because several of you mentioned this one, and this is actually a plant that I have got just here so I can show you, and it's not actually mine. This is technically Ross's, and it is a Begonia breviremosa. And it looks like this, and I've shown you it in a couple of videos very briefly before. And as you guys know, and as I've already kind of mentioned in this video, typically I'm not a massive one for colourful plants, but there is something about this one, and it is so unusual, that has kind of grabbed my attention a little bit, and I do actually really like. I really like how its new growth comes in very kind of vibrant and pinky and almost kind of like punky colours, and then fades to more of like a silvery pink. It's also incredibly adaptable because this is a cutting that I took off Ross's main plant through in the bedroom. It's propagating in water at the moment and it really needs to be topped up, so I will make sure to do that after this video. I did also show you last time, but this is a really cool little prop thing that Ross made, octopus to go around the prop station, which is really cool and matches the plant. But yeah, as I say, very adaptable because his is growing in bright and direct light, very kind of standard humidity levels. It gets a little bit neglected from time to time, and it hasn't kicked up a stink at all. And I took this cutting of it, and this one's living on top of my cabinet there, which at this time of year probably gets kind of low to medium light, and it's rooted within the space of a couple of weeks, and it is putting out new growth as well. So it's been a very easy plant to care for. And it's one that I, as I say, am actually really enjoying growing as well. But yeah, this one is native to the rainforests of New Guinea. And because it is a rainforest plant, again, that's in the name, it's kind of quite telling, but it is one that will probably appreciate higher levels of humidity and is likely to look more kind of vibrant and conditioned when it is receiving that. However, as I just said, it's also one that's proven to be very adaptable and doesn't necessarily need uber high levels if you're not able to provide that. And to be honest, with begonia, like I am definitely not a begonia expert. I have got a few different types in my collection. I have acquired a couple of new cuttings recently. I feel like I'm potentially getting into them a little bit more this year, but I definitely don't feel in a position to be able to give you thorough care advice on them because I haven't grown them for long enough. So I know I've got some of you on here that are insane with begonias. Some of you have sent me really amazing pictures of yours in the past and ones that you think I'd like. So again, if you're a begonia person, drop us a comment down below. By all means, share some tips. Anything like that is always massively appreciated. But yeah, it's a really cool, really unusual one, and I think I said it in my last video, but one that even if Ross decided he didn't want any more, I think at this stage I would still keep for myself, which is saying a lot because these are colours that usually I don't do very well with. But yeah, it's just a really cool one, and one that I'm really excited to watch grow. Oh, and I forgot to include my fun fact on this plant as well. Apparently, when it's grown in the right conditions, leaves on this plant can reach up to 25 centimetres in size. And that is big. Like, if you look at the size of the leaves currently, I would say maybe they're like 5 centimetres. 25 is like that. That is just under the length of a standard ruler. So yeah, can you believe they can get that big? That's really cool, and I kind of want to achieve that with it. Oh, and this next one is another one that I hadn't heard of before. It's a genus that I'm familiar with, but it is a variety that I am not. And it is the Shish or Schismatoglotis metallica. And oh my goodness, if you are into weird, dramatic, kind of dark plants, then you will absolutely love this one. It's so cool. There's lots of types of plants with the name Metallica in them that have kind of like an iridescent metallic sheen to them. And looking at the pictures of this one, in some pictures it looks almost blue, in others it looks very pink. It's just absolutely amazing. And this one's native primarily to Borneo or Kalimantan. And I've had experience growing a couple of different types of, I always say Schismatoglotis, but I don't know if it's actually Schismatoglotis. But I've got a Schismatoglotis SP Borneo at the moment, which I'm currently growing in my cabinet. And previously I did also have a Schismatoglotis Wallichii, which was one of the most beautiful plants I think I've ever owned. But I don't find them that easy to grow, if I'm being completely honest. I feel like with the SP Borneo, I'm still very much figuring it out. The Aliccia, I went downhill very quickly. It got pests several times. I think eventually I left it outside to try and de-pest it and forgot about it, which is completely my own fault. But yeah, I don't find them as predictable to grow as you might think, like looking at them. And in fact, the Metallica here is a little bit different, but looking at them, you almost often get Calathea vibes because they're very striking, they look very thin. But they're actually, in my experience, nothing like Calatheas. They like bright indirect light. They can be very, very, very slow to grow. I don't know why you'd kind of expect them to be quite fast, but in my experience, they are really quite slow. And yeah, as I just said as well, they are or can be very susceptible to pests. So very vigilant, regular pest checking is 100% recommended. Spider mites and thrips are the ones that I have found so far are probably the worst. Those are the pests that I typically struggle with the most in my collection as a whole, and obviously I do have a very big collection. But I think when I talk about a plant that is susceptible, I think about where I often notice infestations starting, or for example, if I've got a big contained area of plants, which ones within that area are affected first. And the Shish Glotus has definitely been one in my time of owning them that has been what seems to be the culprit plant. But nonetheless, looking at the Metallica, it is so incredibly beautiful. I'm trying to work out, actually, the pictures I'm looking at on Google, if the undersides of the leaves are red or if that's just iridescence, because I can see that the tops of the leaves almost look quite shiny and then the stems are very red. So I think actually, yeah, the underside might be kind of like a burgundy colour. It's very pretty. It's very pretty. I don't know if it would necessarily be a plant that I would jump at getting. Like some of the ones on this list have just blown my mind, and I've been like, oh my God, I need to make a note of that right away because I need to add that to my collection. And although I think this one is gorgeous, it's kind of like the Philodendron Dark Lord. Like that's one that I know a lot of people absolutely love, or the Black Cardinal or anything like that. I can appreciate it in other people's collections, but it's not something that I would currently choose to have in my own collection. Same with like the ZZ Raven, which I know I did really want for a while. I did really want, but I'm kind of, and I had a couple of opportunities to get it as well, and I've kind of gone, oh, but do I? And I've decided that I probably don't for the time being. But yeah, as I say, nonetheless, it is really, really cool. Oh, and this next one is an amazing one, and I have a feeling I might have mentioned this on my channel a while ago, but if I have, oh, was it on Patreon? I can't remember. If I have mentioned this one, it was very briefly. And it's commonly known as the Jade Vine, and its Latin name is Strongylodon macrobotrius. And oh my goodness, if you haven't seen this plant before, I feel like it will just blow your mind. It looks like loads of turquoise blue bananas. It's just so cool. It's native to the tropical rainforests of the Philippines. It likes bright and direct light. It's another one that's incredibly drought tolerant as well. And also, interestingly, another one that's a member of the Fabaceae family, which is the chickpea lentil pea family that I was talking about earlier. And just looking at it, they almost do look like pea pods, and I'm not sure if they are or not, but if they were, that would kind of make sense. And if that is the case, I would have thought it would be a very easy one to propagate and grow from seed. But as I say, it's one that I have oh my goodness, never seen just like out and about in a garden centre or a rare plant shop. I don't even know if it's available to buy here in the UK, to be completely honest. So again, if any of you have it, my God, please let me know, and let me know if I could buy a cutting off you, because I would really like to have this plant in my collection. But also I thought this was amazing. It will apparently typically grow up to 50 feet long and 15 feet, sorry, across in its natural habitat. And if you're not very good with like feet and inches and stuff, just to put it into perspective, I am 5.5 foot tall. So that is almost 10 times as tall as me, and then 15 feet across. That is just absolutely crazy. Like, I can't even imagine, like, I can't imagine something that big. I don't know, without it being in something like Avatar. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't feel like, don't get me wrong, I know there are some amazing tropical plants that in like a UK environment you just wouldn't come across, but I just can't imagine seeing something like this just growing in the wild. It just blows my mind. It's so cool. So yeah, it's one that I would love to acquire at some point. I know I'm also saying some of these I'd love to acquire. I don't know if any of these are endangered. I haven't done extensive research into that, and obviously before I go buying anything, I would absolutely do some more digging. These are just some of the ones that you guys sent across and made me go, wow, and yeah, so they had to be included in this video. I also feel like I would like to, and we're not even done yet, but I would like to make a part 2 to this video, because I'm really enjoying going through these, and I think it's just kind of fun to cover plants that aren't spoken about that much. So if you guys want a part 2, do let me know in the comments below, and I will absolutely happily make it. And on that note as well, if you've got any plants that I'm not covering on this list that you're like, oh, that one's weird and wonderful, comment it below and I will maybe include it in the next video. Anyway, okay, number 9. I don't know how I feel about this one. The next one is Aliccia flying squid. And if you watch my other videos, then you will probably have heard me talk about Aliccia a lot. It's, again, one of my favourite genus of plants. I've got loads of Aliccia. I think I've probably got about 25 different types of Aliccia in my collection. I think they are just beautiful plants. The flying squid is a weird one. Like, if you look at it, it's almost leafless. It almost just looks kind of like the, oh, there's a plant called like the frazzle dazzle or the shizzle dizzle or something. And it kind of looks a little bit like that. It definitely doesn't look like an Aliccia. And it's native to Asia and Eastern Australia. And I can't make up my mind if I love it or hate it, to be honest, because as I say, I know I talk about texture and different kind of leaf patterns, and I know that that is one that offers a lot of texture, but I'm not sure if it's the kind of texture that I like. I'm not sure. There's something about it being an Aliccia as well that I find a little bit off-putting, because I hear Aliccia and I think beautiful foliage, I think like big kind of wide leaves, and the fact that that's not achievable with this plant just kind of makes me go, oh, well, I don't know if I'd want to grow it then. Do you know what I mean by that? But then again, it could be kind of similar to how people feel about the Philodendron tortum, because, and I love my Philodendron tortum, but I'll put a clip in of it so that you can see. But if you don't know, the Philodendron tortum basically doesn't have a very wide surface area. It's very kind of skeleton-y looking, and it doesn't look like what you would potentially think of when you hear philodendron. And for that reason, I know a lot of people kind of go, oh, Philodendron tortum. But maybe it's just kind of like that. But I must say it's not making me want to run out and buy one. But yeah, how do you guys feel about it? Because it kind of makes me feel weird. But then the final one is another begonia, and a begonia that I've never seen in person before, but I have seen pictures of, and it's the Bonia Ferox. And if you've got, I think it's called trypophobia, the fear of dots and holes, you might not like the look of this, so just a pre-warning before I put the pictures on the screen, because it is covered in little, what look like little spikes. And the first thing that this reminded me of, and I'm probably going to massively show my age here, but anyone that is roughly my age, in your early 30s, I don't know if you remember when we were at school, you used to be able to get these like earrings, necklaces, keychains that were kind of like, I don't know how to explain them. They were kind of like globs of like sticky like plastic, like, again, I will find a picture and put it on the screen because I'm explaining this poorly, but that is the first thing I thought of when I saw this begonia, and it made me feel quite nostalgic. So yeah, it's a very weird one, and so currently I don't think it's a begonia that I would rush out and get for myself, but also considering I said that about pretty much all begonias 8 months ago, I wouldn't say never. I think it is quite a cool one, and it is one that I further down the line might consider adding to my collection. But this one's native to China. As with lots of begonias, it grows best in bright and direct light. It really loves humidity. I have read that similarly to what I said about the Breviremosa, although it really likes humidity, it can cope slightly better than some other types of plant in kind of like more standard kind of 40–50% as opposed to tropical kind of 60 to 80% humidity. But the thing I really like about this one is that it's got a really nice balance of colour without feeling, for me, too overwhelming and colourful. Like if you look at the backs of the leaves, they're very pinky. If you look at the new growth coming in, it's quite kind of reddy pinky as well. But then it's got the lovely kind of shades of green within the weird pattern on the foliage. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. It's one that I may revisit and may at some point see if I can get a cutting off, because this one does seem to be quite readily available on Etsy, and Etsy is where I typically shop for cuttings. So yeah, I will let you know if I decided to get one of them. But yeah, as I just said, if you'd like a part 2 to this video, I will happily make it. I've had a lot of fun chatting through these ones with you guys, and there are so many more that I could have included, so many more. So yeah, drop suggestions below, let me know, and we can potentially do this again soon. But yeah, this might also be my only video this week, just because I'm running around a little bit like a headless chicken before Malvern Festival. As I said at the beginning, it will be so lovely to see some of you there, and I'll leave all the details for that below. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful week, and if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.